The Fossores Chapter House is the world's first headquarters for Christian ministerial innovation, bringing preachers, leaders, and innovators together to collaborate on new liturgies, resources, and responses to the challenge of our times. This podcast explores the ever-changing era of perpetual upheaval, in which effective ministry requires constant imagination, creativity, and change. Well, hey everybody, thanks for joining us today on the Chapter House podcast. Today we're talking about a theological bit of creativity, theological innovation, and we're talking about the importance of happiness, positivity, and gratitude. And I'm joined with my two friends, Eric Kelly and Kevin Nichols. So I want you to introduce yourself, tell everybody what you do, where you're from, and then Kev, you too.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Eric. Yeah.
Eric Kelly. I live in Jackson. Actually, live in Rives Junction, which is not Jackson, but close. And then I am a principal of an elementary school.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing that for the past 8 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. That good?
That's good.
All
That's good. I heard the applause actually coming through.
Podcast
coming through
applause.
Apple Podcasts. Yeah.
Kevin? I'm Kevin Nichols. I have lived in Jackson since 1985. Actually, Napoleon, since we are really going to pinpoint it.
Yeah.
I've actually lived in Napoleon all that time, but I've lived and worked around the Jackson area. Little foray into Adrian for a little while, a little foray into Ann Arbor, but my home base has always been Jackson, Napoleon. I'm a artist, musician. I've spent the last... my career was 30 plus years in the newspaper industry as a graphic artist in everything from advertising to editorial. And I've been out of the art world of that type for, about the last, I guess, since the end of 2019.
Yeah.
So now I'm simply a guy that makes art and music and hustles every single day and everything that's related to that. And of course, I'm also one of the people that helps lead worship at West Winds, my church, for the last going on 10 years now I've almost been there. Yeah.
Well, I invited these two guys on the show for those of you who might not know them because they're good friends of mine, and they're the two most positive people I know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's.
I'm not friends.
This podcast is a cry for help.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And so, I just, a number of years ago, I was sitting down with a good friend of mine, Greg, and we were talking about happiness, and he said, "How come there's nothing about happiness in the Bible?" He was asking the question, and I said, "There's tons. There's tons of material, but the Bible uses a much broader semantic range to talk about happiness. It uses the term joy, pleasure, yada yada yada." So we begin this 8-year journey, Greg and I, comparing the biblical material on happiness with the sociology, philosophy, and positive psychology pertaining to happiness, and then we published my results in the book, The Adventure of Happiness, which I dedicated to you, Kev.
Yeah,
and
I appreciate that.
I open up the cover and I see that. Well, sometimes I forget, and then when I see your name there, I'm like, "Oh, that's right. That makes me so happy to have,
And then you look at the other half and it's upside down, which is the other cool thing about that book.
Yeah. I didn't get that far.
The book is upside. Yeah, that's how you can prove if anybody read the book or not.
That's it. What happened to it? I was. But I just thought, there was so much about happiness that was really important to me, and I'm still surprised that so many Christian people push back when I talk about the idea that God wants you to be happy. And Christian people tend to assume that happiness is fleeting and insubstantial, and that if you're going to be a real faithful follower of Jesus, you should be more gritty and determined than you should be joyful and exuberant. And I don't think those things are mutually exclusive. And right now in the middle of COVID, man, do we need a happiness injection. Good night. I mean, this is what a ball-crushing, soul-sucking set of planetary pissy circumstances. And I keep going back to Jesus' teachings on abundant life, to the Solomonic wisdom about finding joy in earthly pursuits and pleasures and gratifications and satisfactions, and the Apostle Paul's teaching on renewing your mind. And I just think that there's a lot in the Scripture that really help us. So that's how I came to happiness and gratitude and positivity. Your dad was a professor. Mm-hmm. Was it a positivity? Was this like an area?
Well, I mean, his air in his entire life has been that of positivity, but he's a sociology professor.
Yeah. Because he radiates optimism.
Yeah.
Like crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody that knows me and asks me why I tend to be the way I am, they literally have to just meet my dad for 2 minutes, 2 seconds actually, and they'll get a hug and a kiss no matter who you are, and they're gonna hear the best story right away about something that you've said to them, and he's instantly connected with you on. And you know, it's just he's my mom and dad. I've told you many times, my mom and dad are heroes and my mentors and my idols and the people that I strive day in, day out to be more like every single day.
They're great people.
Yeah.
Great people. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you? I mean, you came in, what was your way into this topic? Was it gratitude mostly? Was that?
Yeah, I would say, that's a better way to put it for me. Of course, I grew up in a tradition, church tradition, which was like, hey, it was more of a Pentecostal, which was everyone's happy, super emotional, overly done some things. Not to, say that that's what the tradition is altogether, but so I remember taking that and being more introspective. That's a little too over the top for me. Let me think. Yeah. What is the thing that's fueling me to be someone who's going to get up in really crappy circumstances, still have something to look forward to? Because it's hard not to be that person. So I started to just look into, hey, how can I be so grateful? What's the gratitude portion of it? How can I find what's good and just be happy with what it is? Be grateful for what I have. And that would be more of my end.
Yeah.
With that.
Yeah. Well, I think each of us have certainly gone through our share of challenges and difficulty in the last, say, 5-10 years. And somehow I think we've all come to the realization that happiness is a lot more work than people assume.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you're going to be a positive, happy person, that's not a disposition. That's a discipline. So what are the things that have helped you to maintain a sweet spirit, maintain a positive outlook when the things around you were not good?
Yeah.
Oh boy, it's tons of practice, I guess. And it is just true disclosure. That's not been easy to be a person who's not just looked at with wrong. Like I've had to grow into that.
Yeah.
So being the youngest of 5 kids, and my brothers and I spent a lot of time together, and my sisters, and so it was always from a family of origin, like what was wrong. Yeah. Something was always wrong, and it seemed to be good to have something to complain about, something to be angry about, something to be judging about, and so I've tried this over the past many years. I won't tell you how old I am. I'm somewhere between the two of you, I think. But I am.
I don't think you're right about that. I'm guessing I'm the oldest guy in the room.
Okay. But boy, I had to, through really crappy circumstances, out of my control. So that lack of control. And then I think a lot of things that drive a lot of negativity is just fear, like you talked about even before we started.
Yeah.
So trying to be someone who isn't controlled by fear, which has come from circumstances. Yeah. And those circumstances, realizing they're out of my control, what am I going to lean into? And so the one thing, I can't think of where it came from, Christ is like the internal vicar, like the place where I go to the wine cellar, like where do I go internally? Which is kind of like a meditation, but not so much.
Yeah.
I'm not great at that because my mind is always going.
Too much monkey brain.
So many thoughts. So it's like I got to slow down, calm down, be introspective, and let go of things. And
do you find that your occupation, having to be around students and teachers and parents and that kind of stuff, do you find that has to kind of force your hand every once in a while, and how you have to almost conjure happiness because they don't want to. They're not going to you're probably forced more than many people's occupations to, and you too, Dave, and as the head of a church. People have this expectation that you always have to be on, right? Is that kind of, and maybe I have that a little bit of that too when I'm performing and stuff. I mean, people just expect that I'm always going to be lifted up in a certain way.
My mom and dad grew up in church ministry. They did a lot. So when I was growing up, I got a front row seat to them. And that's one thing that's really foreign to me is the concept of being on. Not that I necessarily disagree with it, just that we were groomed in such a way that you're never on Like I hear a lot of my peers in ministry will say, "Oh, it's the always on lifestyle. You always got to be ready to perform. You always got to, be ready to greet somebody." But we were never on, like never. When people come to our house, they'd show up unannounced, and we'd bring them in and let them sit at the table. But we'd be in our pajamas, or we'd be, really casual, or somebody stop into my office and see me at the church, and like I'm not gonna conjure up extra enthusiasm for it. I never even considered it. And I think that was a real gift from my mom and dad, was just to know, like, there's no offer on. There's just you. It's just you. And when you're depleted, when you're sad, you're going to have less to give. And when you're renewed and full of vim, then you're going to have more to give. But I don't have any internal mechanism that makes me go, oh crap, now I've got to perform, or now I've got to lead, or now I've got to proclaim, or which is, I'm really thankful for that, because I think that's a peculiarity of my upbringing.
Yeah.
And it's a nice burden not to carry.
Yeah.
I have other burdens, but thank God.
Yeah, and I when I said that, I've never seen you in the capacity other than when we play music together at church, but I've never seen you in your day job. But I do see you all the time in your day job, and I also see you when we're out and about and we're having fun. And the great thing, and I can see where you're going with your point about that, of how your approach might be a little different than some other pastors you've talked to that said you always have to be on. And I do know that what I've always gotten from you was 100% Dave. Yeah. And so that's refreshing to me. That's one of the things that attracted me to be more and more involved at West Winds, was your leadership there. Because I didn't feel like that you were necessarily having to. Now, with that being said, where some people might say you have to always be on, you're on, what your version of on is really appealing to me and to a lot of people. And so it's not like, I think you're very legitimate and genuine in what you're giving us, and you're not even giving us anything. What your presence in.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Thank you. Yeah. I found I do it tremendous. I mean, pastoring, especially if you're doing public ministry, because in church land there's all kinds of different jobs. There's lots of behind the scene jobs. There's small groups jobs and youth pastor jobs, but any public facing ministry, preaching, worship leading, there's so much head games. And so one of the things that's been really helpful to me when I was studying happiness was learning the techniques that best help me renew my mind, learning the techniques that help me silence all the accusations and all the mental chatter, because there's nothing worse than getting up there and preaching your guts out and then seeing somebody yawn. And this happens all the time. I don't know that this ever happened to me anywhere other than West Winds, but this happens a lot at West Winds. Because West Winds is a creative place and kind of an out there place. So every now and then people will come, literally, like they'll come just to find flaws and make fun. So if you're up there preaching the gospel and some Nimrod is in there in the third row visiting from a Bible college, and he's talking trash about you while you're preaching to his pews, you're like, so help me God, I'm gonna shove a testament up you. Like, oh man, is that infuriating? So, but you can't stop. You gotta keep going.
Yeah.
So for me, learning the techniques to quiet my mind, learning how to overlook those things, learning how to move past those things, has been so critical in me finding joy at work. Because those things are murder.
And now in this time of COVID, where we're in our setting, we're looking at 10% of what we used to see every Sunday. Yeah. And we're seeing them segmented in boxes, which is super creative, but it's also like weird. We don't have a youth ministry, so people are bringing their kids, and so now you're dealing with extra noises and things in a place that's a little more quiet than we're used to having it be too. So the challenges, man, it's something else. I mean, I still, for me, helping lead worship and being up there singing and playing and everything that's still that connection. We've talked about it many times. I mean, for me, it's no different than when I'm playing at West Winds than when I'm playing at a festival or at a bar or at a coffee house. Yeah. So for me, people always ask me, like, how do you always make sure that you're on? Yeah. And it's my secret in the last, especially, in all honesty, it's great that you brought up your happiness book, because gone back in the last month or two, and I've really dove back into it.
Oh, cool.
It sits right next to my studio computer downstairs when I'm drawing my cartoons, and I'll pick it up and read a little bit. And because this from about mid 2019 to today, this has been for me probably one of the worst episodes of depression I've ever had, of anger that I've ever had, of not being able to figure out how to early on to be gut punched by some things in the middle of 2019 that just broke my heart and made me angry and really depressed. And then to have 2020 start and have my mom pass and have COVID do its thing. And just, people go, they send me notes about my cartoons or my music when I'm playing, or they'll do stuff and they'll say, man, thank you so much for that. I really needed what you did for me today with your music or with your cartoon or with your comment or with your constant positivity. And in my mind, in my mouth, I say, you're welcome. In my mind, I say, you have no idea that what I'm doing right now is the most, in my mind, the most selfish thing I could possibly be doing, because I am pouring myself into the main things that have always brought me happiness. And so I'll go and play my guitar somewhere or in my basement and just sing and play as loud as I can, because that's how I'm gonna go on. And when I draw a cartoon, it's never for anybody to see other than just my way of whatever that message is in that cartoon I did. And usually I try to make them always positive messages, because I need that reminder myself.
You're preaching to yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, man, it's been, it still happens every day. I mean, it's every single day.
Well, I'm with you, man. And I wonder this because I think maybe all three of us struggle with depression. And I go, if you're prone to depression or melancholy or whatever, you got two choices. You learn how to fight it, or you just get your ass kicked till you die. And I got lots of front row seat in my work, or lots of early experiences watching people not learn how to fight, and they end up increasingly medicated, not just medicated, but more and more and more medicated, and tons and tons and tons of therapy. They shut down their lives. All the lights go off in their life. They sever their relationships. They hold up high to, like, you can do that for 60, 70 years. You go, so the option of learning how to fight, even though fighting is hard, the option of learning how to speak positively, think positively, help others, get focused on meaningful gratifications and pursuits. Like, it's so much work to fight against the darkness inside of us. But what other choice do you have? You lose or you fight. What about you? Have you found that helping others is a good antidote for your own garbage?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I can tell you that I think I'm designed differently than people I run into. So that's not to say I'm better. It just means that I'm starting to realize now, close to 50, is
see, I told you I was older.
I am that I really am designed to be a very empathetic and loving person. That comes at a tremendous cost. I thought in the beginning, in the 20s and the 30s, it would just be like, I'm going to be a lot, and then it's going to solve problems, and people are going to be close to me because I'm going to be loving them, and they're going to change their lives because of how much I love them, and really altruistic and thinking that this is the answer. And then in my 40s and 50s, when life hits you even harder, in certain circumstances, you figure out there's either it's going to be the death of me in some way, or I'm going to have to survive it. So I've realized that my tremendous desire to be empathetic and loving to people is a cost. So it sounds counterintuitive, but I've had to create boundaries to a degree that say, I'm going to love and care for you. And as I give, an empty vessel is filled more, right? So Christ can work through me. But there's a time when I'm going to have to say, I love you. I love enough to tell you I can't talk to you right now, or my answer to that is no. Or I think you're, especially with my own close circle, my family, is, hey, I disagree with that. But it sends something, my limbic system becomes overwhelmed. Dry mouth, I'm shaky. I become uber focused and slow. Everything slows down, which is almost like a traumatizing event.
Yeah.
Which, because of my family of origin and things in my past, that's hard. That's a hard thing to walk through, and to say to someone as they're lambasting you, either emotionally speaking by words or just nonverbals, it's tough to stay in the room and be there and to say, "Hey, I love you," and with God's help, Christ's help, I'm gonna do the best I can in the situation, but realizing that's enough.
Yeah.
And I don't actually have to be perfect, but on my way to loving God, I'm loving my wife and my kids and my friends. That's hard. It's hard to do. I go to bed and I wake up praying certain things, so I try to keep myself together. There are times when I feel like it's that centrifugal force of me wanting to love and give out to people. It's going to pull me apart.
Well, I relate to that, man, and I think I had a similar naivete where once I believed if I could just love people enough, it would fix them. It would change them. For example, and it's one of the most insidious little deceptions, because it's a way of saying if I'm perfecter or more Christ-like, more loving, then you'll be somehow persuaded by the winsomeness of my charm, or you'll somehow be convicted by the amazing joy that is coming out of me, or you'll share in my joy because it's contagious. But the truth is, you can't ever change another person. We can barely change ourselves. You certainly can't change somebody else. And there was a professor of positivity or positive psychology that used to attend one of the churches where I worked. And most positive guy I ever met, like just a sweetheart. And he was married to the grumpiest cuss of an old lady. And all the time he would have like little sort of notes that he would give her. Like, well, you remember, we gratitude is an attitude, or, this kind of thing. And she'd just tell him to shove it. And I thought, this poor guy, he looked so crestfallen every time he was with his wife of 175 years. And I thought, how does she still be like that when she's married to him? And if he, who's amazing, has never been able to affect positive change in her, how can I ever expect to affect positive change in anybody? And then that was a real sort of rude awakening for me, is to go like, it doesn't matter what I do. Their thing is their thing, and I can't fix it. I can set up boundaries, or I can check, or I can model, but I can't fix. And that was really hard for me to accept for a long time.
Yeah, I think this really tough. It kind of falls on the line. I'm sure this is a meme somewhere. Maybe even you made it. Maybe.
I will tonight.
It is like in the line between enabling and serving is motive.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
If I'm doing it out
Where's that from? That's so good.
I don't know. Maybe I wrote it. No, it wasn't me.
Take credit until you can't anymore.
But if I'm loving you for the sake of me, it's indirect egotism.
Yeah.
If I want something, if I want dinner to be nicer, so I'm going to say something to you that's placating to you, just so we eat. If it's just that, then that's about me. If I say, "Hey, I'm sorry you're having a tough time. How can I help?" and then I'm sacrificing and serving, then it's about you. Which is I would love is really strict criteria. I want good things for the other, for the sake of the other, which is impossible to do all the time. But anyway.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, that was, to me, that was like, we go back to my dad earlier, my mom and my dad. Love in our household. We always said we loved each other. And so I try to live that all the time, and I tell everybody I love them. Yeah. And it's been really hard in this era of COVID because, I like to wear my emotions on my face at all times. Right. I want to smile all the time, and then I got to wear a mask, and I can't share my emotion as easily. I certainly want to hug as many people as I can. I always hug people. I've always done that. We've hugged and kissed them on the forehead, and I've always done that. And so, man, suddenly that other outlet that I had is gone.
It would be hard to do right now.
Yeah, it's really hard to do right now, and it's been for a long time. And so,
but you're smizing.
Yeah. I'm like, can you see my eyes? Can you see my eyes smizing? Yeah.
I think that's from.
But the thing that comes through when I do these cartoons is everybody always goes, love all the time, love. You can't possibly love as many people as you say you do. You can't love everybody like you say in your cartoons, to love everyone. Or when you're on stage, you say, we need to share more love. We need to get through this stuff together, because the only way we can do it is by loving one another. And no, I don't love everybody. I have anger that's driven by people that drive me crazy. But again, those cartoons and those mantras that I sing in my mind and on stage are like to remind myself, if I can't love them, I've got to at least try to love them, And again, that lesson of I can't always change anybody. Yeah. Again, for me, it's just been to try to keep myself changed. But yeah, I've been guilty of that. I wanted to change other people, and it's
even when love doesn't work, love works in me.
Yeah.
And I just have to keep thinking about that. Because the temptation to rip somebody to shreds, or to rip their argument to shreds, or to decimate them, or to expose them, or to point out their flaws, or that's so easy. And you can do it once and feel satisfied. Oh, there's nothing left of that person. I've destroyed them, that political figure. I've destroyed that, whatever. And you feel so purged. But then you're gross, you're toxified, you're contaminated, you're riddled with your own sin, you're negative and you're hateful, your spirit is twisted. Whereas love is so difficult, and you have to keep loving and keep loving and keep loving and keep making the decision to love over and over and over again. It's like you're just constantly flushing out your heart, and it's so difficult, but it's also so worth it. Because the ability to live with an orientation of loving and serving others in Jesus' name is the greatest freedom imaginable, but it's so much work. It's so much work.
It's and I haven't coined this phrase; someone else did. Spiritual physics, the idea of if I'm doing that, then I'm able to see the good that I normally wouldn't see.
Yeah, right.
I remember telling my son a story about this. There's a boy who works at Meyer, and he was a kid I taught, 100 years ago. Yeah. But he remembers me for some very specific reasons, and I'm like, what did I do in that moment to mean something to him?
Yeah, right.
And I was like, wow, that's humbling. And that's scary about the power of that. I'm like, but if I didn't have some level of humility or gratitude or generosity, then I wouldn't see that. I would just be like, which I am sometimes, obviously, just busy and about myself and moving on. And come on, why are you turning here? Go faster. Why did they get my coffee order wrong? I'm just pissed, right?
Yeah.
But
it's I just think when you double down on inviting God to transform and clear out your own heart, just making that decision, you win. And then you got to work out your salvation, like Paul says, with fear and trembling. But just the fact that you want to do it, the fact that you want to love, is the first thing. Because it's so easy to lose faith in love. What this love crap isn't getting me anywhere. This happiness, positivity crap, it's not doing any good. Well, what's your option? Run around and hate everybody?
Yeah.
I mean, we got lots of people that do that.
Yeah, a lot of people do that.
And it would take us about 20 minutes to decide we're going to hate everybody before we got really good at it. Yeah. It'd be a very different podcast. Dial in for that one. It's like, what? Oh, man. I remember I used to do these happiness seminars. I'd travel around to businesses. I did one for your school, for your staff.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. It's a lot of fun, and I'd present some of my research. And inevitably, there was time for Q&A at the end. And inevitably, somebody would always ask, what do you do if you live with a really miserable person? How can you get them to be happy? And so then they'd want me to say something like, if I give them your book, or if I get them your seminar, or if you, teach them an acronym or something. But I just thought that's so funny, because in the same way that you can't redeem somebody else, you cannot make someone else positive. You can't reverse the polarity on their spirit. But
not even with shock there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the best you can do is to recognize that that your own spirit is your own responsibility. So maybe you're married to a cantankerous woman. It's still your responsibility to keep a sweet spirit before God, and you'll be glad that you did. And maybe your kids are a holy handful and they're just awful right now. They're terrors. It's still your responsibility to look after your own spirit. And sometimes we give ourselves increased anxiety and agony in trying to make other people happier, make other people holier, make other people sweeter. And as a result, all our energy, all our transformational energy is focused on them where we can't make a difference, instead of focusing on our own selves where we can make some difference. And I think we hurt ourselves a lot when we do that.
Yeah, I think it's Len Sweet, or maybe it was you through Len Sweet parroting him, but it's like, we need to be not a better argument, but a better narrative.
Oh, that's great.
That's a really...
Yeah, that's a great way to say that.
I mean, I didn't say, I mean, I'm just repeating. But,
yeah, no, I've never said that. I've never.
Oh, you?
No, it might be Len.
You've said a lot of things. Are you sure?
Yeah, I've said a lot of things.
The odds are in your favor.
Yeah, there's a lot of words there. No, but that's again, that's one of the things that came back to me in picking up the happiness book after a couple years, was that every page is about the work. It really is about the fact that you have to really pour the work into it to be happy. It's not just something that just happens, and you have to be able to craft it and mold it. And you don't have the answer at the end of every chapter. It's not the answer. You'll give a hack. You'll give an idea. You'll give things that'll help us grow. But that growth has to happen on our own.
Yeah.
And we can't look to others. We can't look to. We can't look to somebody else to make us happy. We can't look to a thing to make us happy.
Right.
It's gotta be a little more inside.
Yeah.
I think I'm in good company, but I would most likely, I'm guessing, I am not the most competitive person in the room right now. That's saying quite a bit, right? So which one of us hates to lose the worst? It would be, I think I'm third, but I really think, just judging by what I see, that is a really tough thing to let go of, even when you're like, I'm loving you, darn it. What's wrong with you? And to let go of that and say, hey, tomorrow's a new day. I'm going to not die on the hill of my way being this done right now, even though it's the right way. I mean, really, isn't it mostly are we mostly right?
Yeah. No, absolutely.
No, I mean, that's tough. That's really tough.
Yeah.
Again, I'm third. I'm happy to be third in this scenario.
But your first place with that fantastic point, because that's right on. I mean, it really is.
But then you won by saying that I was.
Well, I just think there's a myth out there that philosophers refer to as the happy idiot. And that's the only people who are genuinely happy are stupid. They're just ignorant of the world's problems, or because we don't even believe that somebody could have such great circumstances that circumstantially they'd be fine. So we think the only way you're really happy is if you're oblivious, you're dumb. But that's not it. The people who are genuinely happy are people who do the work of minding and tending to their spirits. And I really think many Christian people are deeply unhappy because they go on the assumption that because they have Jesus inside of them and in their heart, that happiness should be a natural byproduct of that. But that's not true. It's not a natural byproduct of it. I mean, we wish it was. It'd be great if it was, but we have to cultivate. The theologians refer to it as the process of sanctification. You have to cultivate the presence of God in your life. You have to take thought every stray, or take captive every stray thought, and be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And that whole universe of spiritual discipline is so arduous, and yet tremendously rewarding. But yeah, to your point, it's work, man. It's work. Nobody who's happy is an idiot. Everybody who's happy is a scholar of themselves.
And for me, it seems like I'm always doing the opposite of what I think I should be doing. Does that make sense? What's that? The monk, Ajra Contra, is it like do the opposite of?
Oh, I don't know.
So if you have trouble eating fast for a day, if you have trouble, doing whatever, do the opposite. There's a guy across the street you can't stand, make a beeline for him. Like I do that sometimes. Sometimes it's with a really bad attitude, so it's the opposite. I'm doing the good. But sometimes I'm doing it just I'm like, okay, I give up, Jesus. I give in. Like white flag. I'll do it, and I have no idea what's going to happen, and I'm probably not going to see the fruits of this, or the seed that's sowed, whatever's going to happen. Later. But I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah, I'm just going to try it. I'm going to be a fool. I mean, of course, if you know me, I'm always foolish, but that's hard.
But liberating yourself in when we're talking about spiritual formation, we have to liberate ourselves from the expectation of seeing results immediately.
Wow, that's
or even ever.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think of it like this. I go, I want to do the things that the Lord has put inside me to do. Full stop. So if I feel like God is nudging me, I just want to say yes to that. And I might never find out why I spoke to that person. I may never find out why I called that person. I may never find out why I gave money to that person. If I feel like God is calling me to forgive someone or pray for someone I don't like, then I go like, okay, I'm going to do that. And I might never see what happens out there, but over time, I certainly see the results in here. Well, over time, I am little by little a more gracious person than I would otherwise have been because I've got the DNA of a thug. So the fact that I'm not, the fact that people routinely describe me as loving or effusive or friendly or welcoming, that's evidence of God's Holy Spirit at work in me.
Yeah.
That's not my natural disposition, you know, because I want to tease and make fun and I'm not especially sensitive to people's feelings. And if I think that somebody's being a wuss, then I'm going to double down and tease them harder. That's me in the flesh. And listening to the Spirit of God means that over time, I don't do those things anymore, which has its own results out there. But the more important, more immediate results are the results inside of me.
That's kind of like your story about your former student at Meyer. You know, I mean, it's like when you set out on that, when he was a student, you were just following your normal way of doing things in the classroom and the school and everything else in the sense of positivity, but not knowing necessarily, you weren't going, I'm going to affect this kid's life so that 10 years from now when I see him at Meyer and he's going to stop and say, look,
or 20.
Well, and say, look, this had that effect. And you go, wow, I didn't realize that. But you know, that's almost the approach. I mean, it's like, like I said, when I do anything right now, I feel, and maybe it's not true, but it's my way of justifying is like, I'm feeling selfish by doing some of the things I do, by playing the music with as much gusto as I do, or drawing something because I need to look at it and remind myself from it. But if that's the thing that levels me up, positivity wise, and then later on I have somebody come back and say, that really made a difference for me. That wasn't why I did it. But man, it's good to know that I was on the right. I wasn't only just helping myself. I wasn't, you know, the selfish thing was just trying to help myself. But if it actually did something for somebody else, man, that's that thing that makes it maybe my next day easier. Of not waking up with a little bit more depression or a little bit more anger or something like, look, I can.
That affirmation makes a big difference, man. I mean, people, I feel like it shouldn't make that much of a difference, but the truth is it does. If somebody comes up to me on a Sunday and says, man, I really appreciate what you said today, that puts fuel in the tank. And I don't know that I need it. I don't feel like I'm pandering for it. I certainly don't feel like I'm slaving away in hopes that someone will say something nice. I feel like I'm slaving away anyway. And so when somebody says something appreciative, you're like, oh, thank God that this meant something to somebody other than me. Which is really a nice feeling. What about well, let's see. Well, you know, let's go back to depression for just a second. When you're really fighting and you're getting your butt kicked, how long do your episodes last? Like I call it going dark. You know, when I go dark, and it used to be when I was younger, I'd go dark for weeks at a time. Weeks where I was like, I can't lift my head, I can't look at anybody, I can barely get through work in the day. I mean, it'd be, and Carmel and I would talk about it, you know, but it used to be like two weeks, 10 days, 2 weeks where I was just like walking the black dog every day, man. And then I've gotten a lot better at it. So now if I had those depressive episodes, they might last, you know, maybe 48 hours at worst. But man, that's a big improvement for me. What about you guys? How long does it last when it hits you?
Yeah, I would say I would have been similar in my youth, I guess. Now it's less than 12 hours because I just can't. Like
right,
I don't have
life has too many expectations.
Yeah, I don't have the bandwidth or the time to do it longer than that. It happens, but I usually take a few hours for myself. So maybe.
It's for me. It's when you say by yourself. I mean, that's what I actually need, that separation. And for me, it's down to hours now, I would say. But same experience for me. When I was younger, it was weeks and weeks of dark time.
Well, I feel so burdened when I see young people in the midst of that, because I go, I would love to be able to help you understand that I've been through what you're going through, and I know how to get past it. I mean, if I could, I mean, it took me 20 years to knock off a couple of days. It'd be amazing if I could help you knock off a couple of days in a few hours, but that's a really hard thing to pass on to anybody else.
Yeah, that's so true.
And here we are podcasting it, but we're three very much candidates of people that would think on the surface that we're three guys that no one would ever think that we deal with those things, that we ever have depression. I mean, I can't. Now the people that are close to us, they know it.
Yeah.
They see it. Kids know, family know, close friends know. But anybody else, you try to tell them. And I think it's a lot to do with the kind of personalities we have and the type of work that we do. We talk about why we're here because we're talking about creativity. Well, sometimes that darkness that comes with even the most positive of creativity, it's for real. And I have a lot of friends, that aren't in this room that are super creative, but also dance with that demon too. So I
remember hated. And of course, being the youngest of five, you wouldn't think this would happen, but it was 2 older sisters, 2 older brothers. I would be by myself a lot. Yeah. And I hated being alone. Like it was a fear for a long time, even into my 20s. And so now it's the inverse. Like I love some time to myself. Like no, not to diss anybody who's listening who I live with, but I mean, it is. I love to be that like time to myself.
What's funny is my wife. She did one of those really funny like Facebook, Twitter kind of quiz things about you and your mate. And so one of the questions was, who's more social? And anybody I bet would go, Kev's more social. But she answered, I'm more social. She knows me. Right. She knows that she's very much more social. I'm super social with my group of people I know. Yeah. Or when I'm on stage, and that's not social. I'm 20 feet away from most people all the time. I can act a certain way, but I mean, I prefer those. It's easier for me to settle myself if I'm in those times where I can just kind of step away from things. Yeah.
So for me, I need time to think. I need time. I'm very good at processing all my thoughts and emotions. But if I spend too much time alone, then I'm screwed. I gotta get not even so much that I gotta go have a beer with somebody or I gotta get around my friends. I gotta go to Lowe's. I gotta get around humans more than anything because I need other people to bear witness to the fact that I'm here. Mm-hmm. I need other people to see me. I need to have normal human interactions. I need to remind myself, subconsciously that I'm not the only creature alive on the planet. Because if the darkness hits, man, and it's coming on hard, then the worst thing for me to do is be alone. Yeah, I start looking at the rafters, going, "Which rope am I going to throw over that thing?" It's ugly, so ugly.
I'm fortunate to have a circle of friends who I can reach out to if I'm really feeling bad. And they're gonna 1, love me, but 2, call me on it too. Like, hey, what are you doing? Like, are you just gonna sit in it? Yeah. But I would do always the thing that my grandma used to say, which is, if you don't feel good, love someone who feels worse. Be good to somebody, or go do something. Like, she's like, oh, go shovel the driveway. So that really brings me out of it too.
Exercise is a big one. Sunshine is a huge one.
Oh yeah.
You can't. I remember when my dad was dying and I was going to say goodbye. My brothers and I would sit up in his room, and you're just feeling it's awful sitting there watching your dad. You're like, oh, is he going to die today? Is he going to be tomorrow? Awful, and you just feel so heavy. But it was a beautiful sunny week in Vancouver, so it was spectacular to go outside and sit in a lawn chair for 20 minutes. And I felt like I was a solar powered cell phone. All my batteries would charge up, and then go and sit with my dad and say goodbye again. But sunshine's big. Diet's big. Just eating the right foods. not drinking too much, or not that anybody would ever drink. That's a horrible idea. But just hypothetically, if you're a dirtbag sinner and you do, then maybe not too much. And I'll just some of those really sort of normal human things make a huge difference psychologically, neurologically. Yeah. What about excessive happiness? This is the other thing that people would sometimes ask. Is they'd go, especially guys. Guys are really uncomfortable with the idea that somebody's going to be yippee skippy happy all the time. And there is actually research about this that like nobody can be 100% positive all the time. Barbara Friedrichsen, she's a researcher out of the University of Michigan here in Ann Arbor, and she says the best you can ever hope for in life is that you'd have an 8-to-1 ratio of positive to negative thoughts and positive to negative expressions. It's called the Losada ratio, Losada. But of course, that's almost impossible that you would ever be that high. The point just being that, nobody's ever 100% happy all the time. Nobody's ever 100% positive all the time. She says that a Losada ratio of 3-to-1 makes for a very healthy working relationship, but is an indicator of divorce within 2 years if your Losada ratio at home is only 3-to-1. That's so hilarious. Because I go, if I'm 3 times as positive to my wife as I am, critical or even neutral, you'd think that would make me a really great husband. But no, it means that we're screwed. Which is hilarious. And she said, a healthy marriage should strive for a 5-to-1 or a 6-to-1 ratio in communication between spouses. Fascinating. Yeah.
Wow. So increase the number of positive interactions to negative.
Yeah, positive interactions. Yeah, and she breaks it down into, or I think the Losada fella, whoever that is, she's just parroting his research, breaks it down into like actively positive, passively positive, passively negative, actively negative. So like actively positive would be, wow, babe, this is so great. Thanks so much for making dinner. This is spectacular. This is one of my favorite meals you ever made. Or passive positivity would be something like, hey, thanks so much for making dinner. That's nice. So you're not really giving any meat and potatoes to it. Pardon the pun. But then that passive negativity is where most of us spend most of our communication effort. How was your day? Fine. Wasn't bad.
Yeah.
So you're not really doubling down on hate speech or you're not yelling at each other, but the fact that you're really not giving any energy, you're not deliberately trying to sort of raise the positive emotionality in the room. That means you're actively deconstructing your own marital happiness and home happiness.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm trying to think if I at home for sure. I think I try to do my best to be higher on that positivity thing, and I definitely think it makes a difference in the household.
Yeah.
I know that like when I'm having a downtime, I know it affects the household too.
Oh yeah.
It's like so. I could definitely see that the higher ratio is probably going to be more successful. Outside of the home, I try to again be as positive on my exterior as I can. But it's like again, it's been tougher than ever the last with everything we're going through. I think that really affects where we're at right now.
I find it hard.
This would have been a different conversation 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, I feel like
by the grace of God, it's a different.
Yeah, and 2 years from now, yeah, for sure.
I tell you, I've been working really hard to try and help people stay positive and combat their fears and move forward in the midst of COVID. And it's so hard because I don't feel like I have it. Like I feel like I'm running on fumes. But I believe so deeply in the mission of Jesus. I'm working so hard to try. And it feels like now more than ever, not only is the overall tenor of the country and of the church and everything just sort of crappier, downer, more dampened and negative. But now when you try, it feels like you're more of a target for trying.
Yeah.
You get
I
up and
see
you
that.
say something positive and people go, oh, must be nice. Look at you, Mr. Positivity out there just being all Jesus Jr. You're like, I'm going to kill you. And I find that really hard right now.
Yeah.
There's a fair amount of disdain and disparagement of good works, that's hard. Yeah. What about best resources for anybody who's looking to try and stay positive and make a change? What would you recommend?
That's good. I tend to like. This isn't glad handing, but three major influences. So Dave, my friend, I like what you say, and I often go back and listen to things that you've said. Of course, I have most of your books. I think you gave me, so that's good. And then,
I signed you up on a subscription service to myself. Yeah,
that's so good. It reminds me of the music. Remember music for $1 a penny?
Yeah.
Right. But the other thing, Len Sweet has a podcast. I love.
Is Napkin Scribbles?
Yes, it's so good. It's short, which is great because my attention span usually is about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's been fantastic, and I really like. There's a Father Robert Barron. He's a bishop out of California.
Okay.
He used to be in Chicago, and so I've listened to him for a long time. And then now he's got a broader base. He's just really cerebral, and but also in the now, in the moment, and really approachable. And he's Irish, so it's great.
Huh. Does he get the accent?
No, he doesn't. But he, grew up a kid in Chicago. He's got that background.
And so, Len says he does his napkin scribbles when he's in the departure terminals at the airport. So it surprises me that he's been redoing it since COVID because he's not flying anywhere.
Yeah.
But maybe he just, goes out on the deck or something. But that's how he started napkin scribbles.
That's
because he was literally, sitting there with all his laptop bags and stuff piled around him, with napkins that he'd written something on, getting a cup of coffee or something. How about you? Best resources?
Your happiness book is absolutely fantastic. Anybody that wants it, talk to Dave. Find out how to get it.
Yeah.
It's been sitting right next to my computer downstairs. The just basic Bible app that I have on my phone has been really, really good for me to go and just, if nothing else, the fact that it's broken down day to day, because some days I get to spend 20 minutes with it. Some days I just have 30 seconds and I'll just look at a couple of the memes that are based on scripture or some sort of positive message. I'll open up some of the casts that they have in there, some of the recordings. I don't know if those are called podcasts from that perspective.
Whatever
but
they are,
yeah. And then just reading and exercising my mind in general. Yeah. I've read more books this last year than I have in any year of my life. Yeah. And also listened to more music than I've ever listened to. So for me, it's been, Pandora has been a lifesaver because I just kind of find a new artist and then create a station based on him or her and just kind of let it go when I take my hour-long walk every day. That's
You're looking great, by the way.
Thanks, man. I'm working on it. It's
you look fantastic.
some weeks are easier than others. Yeah, I look really young when I have this mask off. For sure.
You're less wrinkly than me.
What are your resources for you, Dave?
Learning and reading and writing and researching the Adventure of Happiness was really helpful to me. I really wrote that book for myself. You can still get it on Amazon. Although what's hilarious is that I don't understand how this works because I don't get any of the money. But people will sell used copies of The Adventure of Happiness, sometimes for hundreds of dollars. Like you can buy it new for like $20 or whatever on Amazon. No kidding. And it's a beautifully designed book. I'm really proud of it. Melissa Evans did a great job. So it's a gorgeous book. But then every now and then you'll see like, you can get this book for $179. You're like, but I'm not even kidding. Like that's the $223 it was once. $223.50 for a used copy of it. I'm like, who used it? Wow. Like, did Steve Martin buy my book? And
take notes in it?
Yeah. Anyway, so please don't pay that much for it.
No. Because if you are,
because
I've got a signed copy myself.
I will write you one in crayon for $220. Marty Seligman is the founding father of positive psychology. I find his works really helpful, and he wrote a book called Learned Optimism that I thought was really great, and a book called Flourish. That was just fantastic. Really strong stuff there. And then I actually think the best defense against depression is to look for gratification, and gratification is defined as creative activity with noble purpose. So if you're going to write music, the process of writing, let's say you're going to try and write a symphony, the process of creating, planning out, and writing that whole symphony is going to absorb you in the creative process so deeply that it's going to lift you out of your depression, or at least distract you meaningfully from it. If you're going to write that symphony and then bring people together virtually via YouTube to record it and do a fundraiser and give the money to a foundation that's going to, give laptops to children in developing countries, that nobility is going to put you through the roof in your ability to overcome and combat depression and lead to a very pleasurable and happy existence. Of course, then as soon as the project over, you're going to have the post-project blues and you're going to bottom out like crazy. But one problem at a time. So pursuing gratifications, I find, is the best thing. So, I've been working on a novel since 2013, which is so hilarious.
Is this the gunfighting one?
It's like a space cowboy novel.
Yeah, I've read your first draft.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, did you get the whole thing, really?
Yeah. It was a while ago. It was
oh man,
years ago that you gave me that. It's still on my computer downstairs.
Oh,
you sent me the PDF. So
that's the worst thing about being a writer. If you're a musician and you say, "Hey, listen to my new song," you're asking for a 3-minute favor. If you're a writer and you ask someone to read your novel, that's a 6-month favor. That's such a big ask,
Well, you talk about those kind of outlets. People right now, people have found ways to combat COVID that have actually added beauty and creativity to the world, and we'll be enjoying those things for a long time. My good friend, my fellow musician, Mike Krupe, something that you don't know about him, and then he'll probably listen to this at some point.
You better. Hey, Krupe.
Is a fantastic writer.
Really?
Like a writer of short stories and opinion pieces and. Nice. And so he started.
You want to read my cowboy story?
Yeah, he absolutely would want to read that, because he loves to read. He's always done that. He's always he originally wanted to be an English teacher and writer and that kind of thing, but he's such an amazing musician that kind of gets in the way of that. But he told me a while back. He said, "Man, I've been kind of writing some stuff, and I want to send it to you." And I said, "Yeah, for sure, do that." And so it was right around the time that COVID started and everything. Yeah. And so every once in a while, I get an email. I got one yesterday from him with the longest piece he's written yet, and it's just fun to watch that kind of thing. So I absolutely know that it's doing that for him too.
Yep.
And when I have a chance to just be creative, it's helping me every day just to get through anytime. Yeah.
Well, Jesus, in John chapter 8, he said, "I've come that you might have life and life more abundant." And I just keep coming back to that particular statement of his. Of course, he said many things, but that statement in particular really feels like such a clear declaration of his purpose, why he's here. And I know so many Christian people that are not experiencing that abundant life. And of course, it's not like you say yes to Jesus once and you immediately get abundance. It's a real process. But I think that's the goal, and that's why I wanted to talk about happiness and positivity and gratitude with you guys. Is because I just think if we're gonna talk about the next iteration of the church and the kingdom in the future, if we're gonna talk about what it means to be a faithful Christian in a global pandemic, then we have to uphold Jesus' words that the goal is abundant life now and eternally. And so our conversation today, I think, helps a lot of people. So thanks, you guys.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. This has been fun.
Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll be back again in a week.